Witcher, 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 there's fish people drowning our sheep in the river!
Sounds like drowners. Gonna need spicy mayo.
Okay.
Oil my blade. Witcher magic for every occasion. Killing monsters is what I do.
Okay, can you hurry?
Witcher! A vampire ate my mom!
A Dracula needs garlic butter.
And I guess bringing in a new White Wolf at this point in the season, a bold move and a tall order for Liam.
And of course, he wanted to honor the character that had already been set up, because he knows that he's stepping into a role. But at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his performance was authentic, that it felt like him, that he wasn't playing and mimicking anything. And so
let's just say the reaction is exactly what we expected. It is getting completely and totally annihilated by the fans. In fact, season 4 earned series low Rotten Tomatoes score as Liam Hemsworth's Geralt arrives on Netflix.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do it.
And that's where you start to get more uncomfortable when you're thinking, there's not a
The Witcher was supposed to be 7 seasons, but it was abruptly cut down to 5 after Henry Cavill left, and Lauren Schmidt is lucky she got that. But she does say, are there more stories? Maybe. Well, actually, there's a lot because you skipped them, but this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. And that probably has a lot to do with the audience stepping back a long time ago.
It was posted last night. Netflix's Q2 report came out, and apparently they lost 1 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year, which we already saw that at the beginning of the year, they lost 200,000. The next month, they lost another couple 100,000, and they had projected that they were going to lose a couple million over the next few months. I don't really think people believed it, but it happened.
Millions of people are canceling their Netflix subscriptions. Why Netflix stock is absolutely tanking right now. I mean, it is just collapsing totally in the red. And you can see that it is on a massive downward slope this month. It's cratering. Why is that happening?
And you have a sense that you're going, is this really necessary?
I watched about 35, 40 minutes of the first episode, and I ended up texting Gary. And I just said, dude, I cannot do this. I'm 40 odd minutes in. I'm done. I've had enough. This is utter.
As the years have gone by, Netflix's Witcher series has gotten worse and worse. Recasts, rewrites, moving further away from the source material has truly damaged this show to the point of no return. There's no way that they could save it going into the last season. But now that season 4 is out and we only have 1 more to go, this show is basically hated by everybody.
Let me ask you guys something. Are you excited for Witcher season 4?
Isn't it out right now on Netflix?
Just coming out, and the reviews have started to drop. So
because I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and bear in mind, given the backlash, I would expect a little bit of review bombing. So people who haven't seen it but who hate the concept. Oh no, you're behind, Drinker.
Is it changed?
It's down to 17.
Henry Cavill just did something no one, and I mean no one, expected. After months of silence, the man once hailed as the perfect Witcher has finally spoken out. And it wasn't just a quiet comment or a cryptic post, it was a direct confrontation with the creators of The Witcher. Season 4, the very people who replaced him and reshaped the story he once carried with his own hands. And it all happened right after South Park tore The Witcher apart on national television.
Witcher, a ghoul!
Sesame glaze.
Bear man!
Honey mustard.
Werewolf!
Honey mustard.
No!
Honey mustard.
Thieving!
Lemon pepper.
Rat boy!
Honey mustard.
Witcher, we's catching snails.
That would be French onion.
Imagine this. One of the most popular animated shows in history dedicates a full episode to roasting the new Witcher season. Not just a jab or a meme, a complete roast that sent the internet into meltdown mode.
My job? Kill monsters. Get coin. Use coin on McDonald's app. Get points. Use points to get free McChicken. Only 1,500 points. Every dollar spent is 100 points. Constant BOGOs. I always leave with a free McChicken. It's like I'm stealing from them.
Stealing? You're a thief. Lemon pepper!
Within hours, hashtag #BringBackCavill was trending again. Fans were flooding Netflix's mentions, and somehow the one person staying quiet through all of it finally broke his silence. But what really went down when Cavill confronted the Witcher team, including showrunner Lauren Schmidt Hissrich? Why did South Park's parody hit such a nerve? And is this the moment Netflix finally regrets ever letting Cavill walk away? Because from what's being whispered online, Henry's confrontation didn't just shake up the Witcher crew, it might have exposed everything fans have been saying for years. So let's break down exactly how this all unfolded, starting with the moment South Park turned the fantasy world upside down. When South Park goes after you, you know you've officially become a cultural joke. And that's exactly what happened when Trey Parker and Matt Stone decided to parody The Witcher in one of their latest episodes. The timing couldn't have been more savage. Season 4 of The Witcher hadn't even released yet, but the controversy surrounding Cavill's exit was still fresh. The episode, titled something like The Glitcher: Rise of the Algorithm, takes aim at Hollywood's obsession with remakes, reboots, and creative reimaginings. In it, a character named Geraldo of Trivia, clearly modeled after Henry Cavill's Geralt, is replaced mid-scene by a clueless new actor who has no idea what's going on. The new Witcher literally asks the production crew what his motivation is, only to be told by the showrunner, "Your motivation is diversity metrics and global reach, Gerald." The audience loses it. It's savage, but it's also strangely accurate. Within hours, fans flooded Twitter and Reddit saying South Park had said what every Witcher fan had been screaming for years, that the showrunners lost the plot, literally. And while the South Park episode was meant to be comedy, it hit Netflix right where it hurt, their credibility. Clips of the parody racked up millions of views overnight. People weren't just laughing, they were angry again. Angry that their favorite fantasy series had turned into a corporate checkbox project. Angry that the one guy who actually loved the source material, Henry Cavill, was pushed out. One Reddit comment summed it up perfectly. South Park just did more justice to Sapkowski's world in 20 minutes than Netflix did in 3 seasons. But then, something unexpected happened. As memes and clips of the episode spread, fans began tagging Henry Cavill in their posts, not as a joke, but as a call to arms. They wanted him to respond, to say something. And while he stayed silent at first, something was clearly brewing behind the scenes. Because just 2 days later, a single quote from Cavill started circulating online. It wasn't from an interview, it wasn't from a PR statement, it was from a private event, a quiet industry dinner in London, where someone asked him what he thought about South Park's Witcher parody. His response: "Sometimes truth comes from parody." That one line broke the internet. Fans went wild, interpreting it as a direct shot at Lauren Schmidt Hissrich and the Netflix team. And within hours, speculation exploded. People claiming Cavill had actually met with The Witcher 4 creators privately after the South Park episode aired. But this wasn't just gossip. According to multiple insiders, some even from within Netflix, what happened next was nothing short of explosive. According to sources close to the production, Henry Cavill arranged a private meeting with several key figures behind The Witcher Season 4, including showrunner Lauren Schmidt Hissrich herself. The meeting wasn't public. There were no cameras, no press, but word leaked almost immediately. And what allegedly went down inside that room has now become the most talked about rumor in Witcher history. Picture this: a quiet, glass-walled conference room at Netflix's London office. The room that once hosted budget meetings and premiere briefings, now filled with tension you could cut with a sword. Lauren sits across from Cavill, surrounded by a few nervous executives. The atmosphere? Pure frost. One insider described it like this: "He wasn't yelling, he didn't need to. Every word he said hit like a hammer." Cavill reportedly began by asking a simple question: "Why did you lose faith in the story that made this world what it is?" Lauren responded with her usual defense, that the show needed to evolve, to reach a broader audience. But that's when Cavill allegedly leaned forward and said something that stunned everyone in the room. "You didn't broaden the audience, you lost the one that mattered." The silence after that was deafening. People close to the meeting say Cavill didn't attack anyone personally. He didn't need to. His disappointment spoke louder than any insult could. He called out the creative choices that ignored the spirit of Andrzej Sapkowski's books, the constant rewrites that stripped Geralt of his depth, and the obsession with chasing trends over storytelling. Lauren, of course, pushed back, claiming fans didn't understand the direction and that the show needed fresh voices, but Cavill wasn't buying it. He reminded her that The Witcher was never meant to be trendy. It was supposed to be timeless. By the time he left the meeting, insiders say Lauren looked visibly shaken. One witness claimed it felt like she'd just been dressed down by the very character she tried to replace. And as soon as word got out, the internet exploded. The story of Henry Cavill confronting The Witcher 4 team became headline news across fandom spaces. YouTubers, Reddit threads, even entertainment blogs began calling it the Cavill reckoning. But this confrontation was just the start, because what happened next, the fallout inside Netflix and the way South Park's episode made it impossible to ignore, would change everything about how Season 4 was being handled. When word of Henry Cavill's confrontation leaked, the internet did what it always does. It exploded. Only this time it wasn't just fans venting, it It was full-on revolt. Lauren Schmidt Hissrich suddenly found herself at the center of a firestorm that made even the South Park parody look tame. Hashtags like #FireLauren, #SaveTheWitcher, and #CavillWasRight trended for days. Twitter was on fire, Reddit was chaos, and YouTube commentary channels were feasting on every rumor, every leaked quote, every behind-the-scenes whisper. And the worst part? Every clip, every meme, every fan comment seemed to echo one core message: Lauren ruined The Witcher. South Park had done more than roast the show. It had turned the spotlight on the very issues fans had been screaming about for years. Unfaithful adaptations, forced modern rewrites, characters that no longer felt like themselves. In the episode, the parody version of Lauren, Loreless Schmidt, was depicted as a clueless producer bragging about fixing fantasy stories. It was savage. She literally says, "Fans don't want the books. They want my version of the books." The joke landed hard because people already believed that's how the real Lauren thought fan forums went into overdrive. Threads with titles like "South Park said what we've been saying since season 2" and "Lauren got roasted harder than Jaskier's loot" dominated trending pages. Within days, old interviews resurfaced, clips where Lauren admitted that some writers on The Witcher didn't like the source material. It was like fuel to the fire. Every sentence from her past became evidence in the court of public opinion. Then came the leaked rumor that Netflix had quietly held emergency meetings to discuss the PR nightmare. It didn't help that insiders claimed Cavill's confrontation had been respectful but devastating. Fans painted him as the noble warrior standing up for truth, and Lauren as the villain who silenced him. Commentators across YouTube and TikTok began dissecting her leadership of the show. They accused her of turning a fantasy epic into a marketing checklist, focusing on demographic appeal instead of storytelling depth. Even people who had defended her before began to back away, saying things like, "I wanted to support her vision, but maybe South Park was right. They stopped caring about the lore." By the end of the week, the narrative was clear. Cavill was the wronged hero. Lauren was the out-of-touch executive who lost the world she helped build. But just when fans thought the chaos couldn't get any worse, the real panic started. Not online, but inside Netflix itself. Inside Netflix, the mood shifted overnight. What had started as another fan controversy suddenly looked like a genuine crisis. Executives who once bragged about creative freedom were now demanding answers. Viewership projections for The Witcher. Season 4 reportedly dropped by double digits after the South Park episode aired. Investors were calling marketing teams "we're panicking," and Lauren, she was running out of people to blame. One insider described it bluntly: "They didn't realize how much people still cared about Cavill until South Park made fun of them. It was like being roasted on live TV by your own audience." Netflix had spent millions building The Witcher as their next major fantasy brand, a series that could rival Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. But now, the same brand was being roasted across every social platform imaginable. Clips of the parody episode were going viral faster than Netflix could copyright claim them, and fans weren't just laughing, they were unsubscribing. One viral tweet read, "Netflix turned The Witcher into a meme. Guess I'll cancel my sub and rewatch Cavill's seasons on loop." That single tweet racked up 500,000 likes. Behind the scenes, PR teams scrambled to contain the damage. They pushed out vague statements about creative transitions and fresh direction, but the internet wasn't buying it. Every post was flooded with replies like, "Bring back Cavill," or "Apologize to the fans." There were even whispers, completely unconfirmed but widely discussed, that Netflix considered delaying the release of The Witcher 4 to make adjustments. Some insiders hinted at emergency rewrites, hoping to repair the story before the next trailer dropped. But the problem wasn't just the script, it was trust. Fans didn't trust the creators, they didn't trust the direction, and after the South Park episode, they didn't even trust Netflix to understand why people loved the franchise in the first place. Lauren, according to multiple reports, was told to lay low and avoid interviews. She reportedly wanted to defend herself publicly, but was advised that doing so could prolong the controversy, so she went quiet, which only made things worse. The silence looked like guilt. Meanwhile, Henry Cavill, without saying another word, continued to trend online. Fans were sharing clips of his interviews from years ago, where he talked about fighting for the lore and respecting Sapkowski's vision. Every old quote now sounded prophetic. "If you don't respect the source," he once said, "you'll lose what made it special in the first place." That single sentence became a rallying cry for fans. And in contrast, Netflix and Lauren looked like the villains in their own story. But as the storm grew louder, whispers started to spread about something else, something even bigger. Because apparently, Henry Cavill wasn't done. He had one last message for the team that let him down, and this time it wasn't behind closed doors. As Netflix scrambled to control the narrative, Henry Cavill didn't need to say a word. The internet was already saying it for him. Clips of his old interviews started resurfacing everywhere. The ones where he talked about fighting to keep Geralt authentic, about his deep respect for the books and the fans who loved them. One in particular went viral again, where Cavill said, "I've always believed you should serve the story, not yourself." That line hit differently now. It wasn't just a nice quote. It was a quiet declaration of everything The Witcher had lost since his departure. Fans began referring to him as the true Witcher. Memes flooded Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok, showing side-by-side comparisons of Cavill's Geralt and Liam Hemsworth's early promotional shots. The difference was night and day. One looked like a mythic hero. The other, as fans joked, looked like Geralt from Wish. But it went beyond memes. It became became a movement. Hashtag Bring Back Cavill was trending again, not just as a hashtag, but as a digital rebellion. Fan edits appeared daily, blending footage of Cavill with scenes from South Park's parody, turning the satire into symbolic protest. One viral fan video even titled itself The Witcher, What We Lost. It racked up over 10 million views in a week. People weren't just missing Cavill's performance, they missed what he represented: integrity, passion, and faithfulness to the story. Meanwhile, entertainment journalists started publishing think pieces with titles like, "Was Henry Cavill right about The Witcher all along?" and "When fandom sides with the actor, not the studio." Even outlets that had once dismissed the controversy were now admitting that South Park's parody had cracked open a deeper truth about Hollywood's creative decay. And through all of it, Cavill remained silent, calm, grounded, and dignified. That silence became part of his mythos. Fans began calling it the Cavill Code, the idea that sometimes saying nothing is louder than every press release in the world. Even people who weren't Witcher fans started paying attention. They saw Cavill as the rare Hollywood figure who stood by his principles, the man who walked away from a major role because it didn't align with the story he believed in. He wasn't just an actor anymore, he'd become a symbol. And that's what terrified Netflix the most, because while their version of The Witcher was struggling to survive, Henry Cavill's image, the version fans remembered, was becoming immortal. By now, it wasn't about fantasy anymore, it was about trust, and that's something no amount of budget or rebranding could buy back. But as the dust began to settle, one last twist sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and fandom alike, something no one saw coming. A few weeks after the South Park episode aired, something unexpected happened. Henry Cavill appeared at a private event in London, a convention dedicated to storytelling in gaming and film. It wasn't a press junket, not a promotional appearance, just an honest, off-the-record panel. But as always, someone was recording. During the Q&A, a fan asked the question everyone had been eager to hear answered. "Do you think South Park went too far?" Cavill smiled, that calm, knowing half-smile that always said more than words ever could. Then, in that low, deliberate voice of his, he said, "Comedy only hits hard when there's truth behind it. Maybe that's what we needed, a little truth." The room went silent. It wasn't anger, it wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. In that one sentence, Cavill reframed the entire controversy. South Park's parody wasn't an attack, it was a mirror. It reflected exactly what went wrong with modern storytelling: arrogance, disconnection, and the loss of respect for the very fans who built these worlds online. The clip spread like wildfire. People began calling it Henry's redemption speech, even though it wasn't rehearsed or staged. Comment sections filled with fans saying things like, "He just ended the debate with a single sentence. This man understands storytelling more than half of Hollywood." Meanwhile, reports began surfacing that The Witcher 4 production had gone into partial rework mode. Allegedly, Netflix ordered subtle script revisions to restore tone and authenticity. And while no one would confirm it, insiders whispered that Cavill's confrontation and South Park's savage roast were the reasons why. In a poetic twist, the parody that destroyed The Witcher 4's reputation might have actually saved it. But the real victory wasn't for Netflix or even the show itself. It was for the fans, for the people who had fought to keep the heart of The Witcher alive, even when the creators seemed to abandon it. And for Henry Cavill, the man who stood by his convictions when it would have been easier to stay silent, it was vindication. As the clip of his calm response continued to spread, people began revisiting his older interviews, piecing together the story of a man who cared too much in an industry that often doesn't care enough. In the end, South Park didn't just roast The Witcher, it sparked a cultural moment. It forced everyone, from Hollywood executives to casual fans, to ask one simple question: when did we stop respecting the story? And maybe that's the irony, that in a world built on fantasy and fiction, it took parody to bring the truth back to light. Because as Cavill once said himself, and now, more than ever, people believe it. Heroes aren't made in front of cameras, they're made when no one's watching. And for once, the fans were watching everything. For weeks, the internet refused to let the story fade. The South Park episode had done its job, Cavill's confrontation had gone viral, and Netflix's PR teams had spent sleepless nights trying to patch the leaks. But something fascinating started to happen once the chaos finally began to fade. People stopped arguing about The Witcher and started talking about what it represented. Suddenly, forums that used to obsess over casting news were debating creative authenticity. YouTube channels that once reviewed episodes were now breaking down the philosophy behind Cavill's comments. Everyone was asking the same question: why did this story matter so much to people? And the answer was simple: because The Witcher wasn't just another fantasy show. It was a symbol of how stories can be twisted when passion gets replaced by marketing strategy. When Lauren Schmidt Hissrich and her team tried to update the narrative, they didn't just lose Henry Cavill, they lost the soul of what made the series special. Even entertainment insiders admitted it. One writer from Screen Rant anonymously told reporters, "Henry wasn't being difficult, he was being protective." There's a difference. That line stuck with people. Protective, not possessive. Because fans finally understood what Cavill had been fighting for all along. He wasn't just defending a role, he was defending an idea that some stories deserve to be told the right way. And slowly, public perception shifted even more. Lauren's silence, Netflix's cautious updates, and Cavill's calm presence all combined into one of those rare Hollywood moments where fans clearly picked a side. By the time The Witcher 4 teaser dropped months later, the comments section said it all. Thousands of people flooded the trailer with quotes like, "No Cavill, no Witcher. You can't replace replace passion. Netflix had their numbers, but Henry Cavill, he had the people. Just when the world thought the Witcher saga was done with him, Henry Cavill made one final move, and it changed everything. At a quiet gaming convention in Poland, a journalist asked him if he'd ever return to the world of fantasy again. Cavill paused for a moment, smiled, and said, "I never left it. I'm just finding a story that deserves the journey." That one line sent shockwaves through social media. Within hours, rumors spread that Cavill had signed on to help develop a new fantasy series, one that would focus on authenticity, world building, and creative respect. Some said it was an adaptation of a forgotten 80s fantasy novel. Others whispered it was his own original concept. Nothing was confirmed, but everyone could feel it. Something big was coming. For fans, it felt like poetic justice. Henry Cavill had walked away from The Witcher not because he wanted to, but because he had to. And now, that same decision had turned him from an actor into a creative force, someone who stood for everything the audience believed in. Meanwhile, over at Netflix, The Witcher 4 continued to face delays, rewrites, and damage control. Lauren Schmidt Hissrich's team tried to convince viewers that the new direction would honor the legacy, but every trailer release, every behind-the-scenes photo was met with skepticism. No matter what they did, every conversation circled back to one name, Cavill. He had become the story, not the show, not the parody, him. And as South Park's parody episode continued to rack up views, millions upon millions of them, people began realizing something ironic. What was meant to roast The Witcher had actually turned Henry Cavill into the hero Hollywood needed. The fans who once felt powerless now had proof that their voices could change things, that even the biggest studios weren't untouchable. And that authenticity, that rare combination of heart, talent, and principle still mattered. In the end, it wasn't South Park or Netflix or even the confrontation that defined this saga. It was what came after, the quiet resilience of a man who refused to compromise his passion. Because while the lights dimmed on The Witcher as we knew it, something brighter began to rise behind the scenes. A story that hadn't been corrupted yet. A story that, this time, would belong to someone who actually cared. And as fans now love to say, The Witcher may have lost its hero, but Henry Cavill never stopped being one. Months later, South Park's Witcher parody won an Emmy for Best Animated Writing. During the acceptance speech, Trey Parker joked, "We didn't mean to start a revolution. We just wrote what everyone was thinking." The crowd laughed, but online, the fans didn't. They nodded, because in a way, he was right. The parody had become prophecy. Henry Cavill's rumored project finally got its name, The Last Kingdoms, a sweeping fantasy epic said to blend medieval myth with moral realism. Early reports claimed Cavill would not only star, but also serve as executive producer, overseeing every detail of the story himself. And when the teaser poster dropped, a single silhouette of a lone warrior against a red sky, fans went wild, because beneath it, in small white letters, was a quote, "Respect the lore." No one needed to guess who wrote it. This ending ties everything together with a satisfying sense of justice, pride, and mystery. The kind of emotional close that keeps viewers rewatching, commenting, and speculating about what comes next.